Hey everyone, my name is Kerry Daigle. This is the Keep Punching University call, and it happens every Monday night at 5:50 p.m. Central Time in the United States of America. And of course, I'm looking around. We have people on right now from Europe, from Canada, from Mexico, and I'm expecting a few stragglers to come in from Australia and New Zealand shortly. So tonight's a special night because I want to introduce to many of you that have not met Dr. Doug Odom, who's actually been a strong proponent in getting the medical community moving forward in the Juice Plus company. And we're going to talk a little bit for those of you that are maybe partners, partner pluses, QSCs, and SCs, and many of you that are even NMDs that have joined us after we had this huge physician explosion early in our business, and Dr. Odom was part of that. So, Doc, I'm going to start with a question from you. As I mentioned earlier, we have listeners on from across the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, and other parts of the world. And many are new partners with this billion-dollar sales company, the Juice Plus company, and I haven't gotten to meet you or know of your background. So can we start with asking you about your professional background before you became a customer of Juice Plus and also a partner?
Sure. Professional background. I attended medical school after 3 years of college and finished medical school in 1969. Did a rotating internship in Dayton, Ohio. Then came back to Mississippi and did a residency in OBGYN. And the day that I graduated and finished that, I started my private medical practice the next day. So I've been in Mississippi since that time. And I retired from medicine 6 years ago. And I love what I'm doing now full time, helping people through understanding the physiology and function of their bodies and how their lifestyle can interplay with what's going on inside their body.
Now, Doc, and correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I don't have all my statistics correctly, but I've been knowing you for a long time, since the day you started with the Juice Plus company, and since the day you became a customer, actually. And I was told, and correct me if I'm not correct here, but I was told that you delivered over 17,000 babies. Is that correct?
That's how many birth certificates I've signed. I didn't keep up with them, but people kept asking me, and I went to our health department, asked them to look in their computer, and they said 17,300 and something. So that's how many birth certificates I've signed.
Now, you've done a lot of speaking engagements across the country, I think even with the American Neutriceutical Association.
Yes, sir.
Who are some of the people that you've spoken for or to?
I've spoken at the Mayo Clinic. I've spoken at the Baylor Medical Clinic. I've spoken at several grand rounds at different medical schools. Stanford is one.
That's impressive. Yes, sir.
They invited me and I said, absolutely, that's a privilege.
There's a large organization called the Central Association of American College of OBGYNs.
Yes, sir. I've spoken there too.
I was going to ask you that. So
yes,
you
sir.
have spoken there too, but among
thank you.
gynecologists. Yeah, very interesting. Now, when we first started in the business, we had an opportunity to be able to meet you. You became a customer first, is that correct? How did you hear about our products?
I listened to Jan's interview with you last week, and she said Juice Plus found her, and that's kind of how it happened for me. Nobody shared information or invited me to something, but I saw a flyer at my hospital about a luncheon that was to take place on a Monday, the worst day of the week, to try to get out of my office, but I made it a point to go to that luncheon, and it was about learn about Juice Plus. That was the title of the flyer. So I went just out of interest.
Out of curiosity.
Yes, sir, exactly.
So tell me a little bit, when you went there, what happened? Did you become a customer at that time? Did somebody approach you and say, let me tell you more about the business?
There were 6 people in the room. One of them was our good friend, Harriet Seltzer, your fellow founder. And she was a patient of mine when she lived in Jackson. She had moved at that point to Atlanta, but her parents were still living, and she was visiting them, and she was hosting a luncheon. She had a doctor from Anniston, Alabama, who came over and spoke about this is in quotes, the science, because they had very little science. This was in January 1998. So we had a pilot study that showed that Juice Plus could reduce lipid peroxides by 2/3 in 28 days. That's what grabbed me. It was the science and the research that literally the company was willing to spend the money. At that point, though, they didn't have really published studies. I think Jan said last week that when she started, we had 4 or 5 or maybe 6 studies. But when I started, we really didn't have one viable study, in my opinion.
I remember when you lived in what part of Mississippi? Was Jackson, right?
Well, I grew up in Hattiesburg, where Southern Miss is, and I did go to medical school, and we have one in Mississippi, and it's in Jackson, and it's the University of Mississippi Medical Center.
For everyone that's listening in, I have to be able to say this, and you can comment on this too, Doc, if you don't mind. That's quite a few miles away from where we were living at that time, Lafayette, Louisiana. But every time we had an event, whether it was a physician speaking or someone speaking in reference to our business, Dr. Doug Odom, while he was running a busy practice delivering babies, would drive in from Mississippi and never miss an event in Louisiana. It was unbelievable. What was that drive all about? What made you so excited that you say, I'm gonna work all day, I'm gonna deliver these babies, I'm gonna do all these things, but I want to learn more about Juice Plus and everything that's going on. How many times did you visit us? I can't even count. It's could be close to 100. Would you mind sharing a little bit about why?
Well, I was curious to learn, Gary. And you had the best speakers in our company come down to your area, and you and Jim and Mickey, y'all just had the magic. So it was quite a treat for me to come down, and it was a 4.5-hour drive. And that was, as you would say, that was typically after a busy day or a busy evening the night before. But I was determined to learn as much as I could about this whole food concentrate.
It's really interesting to everyone that's listening in. You really never know who shows up at a meeting, do you? So it's good to pay really close attention, because a busy OBGYN like Dr. Doug Odom attends out of curiosity. And next thing you know, not only is he speaking across the world in reference to Juice Plus, he becomes a top level national marketing director and builds a huge organization and a huge amount of customers and patients that start taking Juice Plus. So never take anyone for granted that may show up, never prejudge anyone. This is a perfect example of what can happen. Now, Doc, your first reaction, of course, was the product. What was that reaction like?
Well, I'd been teaching medical students for 30 years. And one day they asked me, what causes preeclampsia or toxemia? And I said, we don't have that answer, but we're really close to it. And then the next thing I know, Rick Du Bois is Richard Du Bois, infectious disease doctor in Atlanta, Georgia, is giving lecture after lecture after lecture on oxidative stress, and that being the common denominator for all chronic disease. So I knew we were close to an answer with toxemia, but it was right in front of us, and we didn't recognize it. But it was our lifestyle. It was the way that we were living that was contributing to people developing this dreaded disease in pregnancy, and it only occurs in pregnancy, but it can be prevented. And so oxidative stress, I won't get too didactic here, but oxidative stress is too many free radicals that the body can't handle. And a free radical is an oxygen compound missing an electron. And so what can neutralize, what can donate electrons? Well, they're called antioxidants. And where do we get those? Our body can make some, but not nearly enough. So we have to rely on our diet. And most people in Mississippi, pregnant women especially, weren't eating the proper diet that would neutralize these damaging free radicals. So it just started coming together that diet is so critically important for optimal health. And our body loves balance. Our body loves this state of homeostasis where everything's in harmony. And but we're not allowing that to happen by the way that we're living. And so diet is extremely important. And then I knew that vitamins were good for us, but I knew that we were limited with vitamins. And but there's so many other compounds that donate electrons that aren't vitamins, that are plant compounds, and they're called phytonutrients. So the more variety in our diet, especially plant food, the better these patients did. And when these patients showed up, and I would offer them a possible solution or a vehicle that could allow them to get their phytonutrients without changing their diet completely or growing their own food. We didn't have tower gardens then, but just a simple solution of swallowing a few capsules a day seemed to work magic in my practice.
It sure did. Now, I noticed you mentioned earlier, for those of you that are listening in, Dr. Odom mentioned Jan. Jan is Dr. Jan Roberto, who was on last week that actually we were interviewing. And I was on the phone with her today, and you actually made a lot of friends in the medical community through Juice Plus on a first name basis. I remember you and Dr. Barry Bone, an ophthalmologist here in Lafayette, who was the first medical doctor in the world to make NMD,
Right.
became good friends of yours. And the two of you guys kind of just took over in the South and really made some great things happen. We appreciate all of you.
Well, that's because of your influence, and thank you, Kerry.
Now the study, thank you for that. But the study, you had a lot of huge success with your patient base. And was there a study that you did in-house or you did yourself? And again, for everyone that's listening in, we're not here to make any claims or say that we're curing any type of disease of any kind. But Dr. Odom, you were so much into what the success you were having with your patients that you started noticing subtle differences. Would you mind sharing that? Can we ask that question?
Is this in pregnant patients or is this in myself?
In patients, yes, sir.
Sure. Well, it wasn't just toxemia, but if we could reduce oxidative stress or chronic inflammation, you just have better outcomes regardless of what you're doing or regardless of the situation. So we began noticing that we didn't have gestational diabetes, another thing very common in Mississippi. We didn't really start noticing this until later, and it was a retrospective study that allowed us to see this, but we didn't have a patient over a 4-year period that delivered a baby before 37 weeks, that's prematurity, if they were consuming Juice Plus consistently.
Wow.
So, and as you said, we're not saying that if everybody did this, that they won't have a pregnancy issue. But we do say that what we have, Juice Plus, the Juice Plus powders, the phytonutrients, the fiber, what it does do is it affects the physiology, the function of the human body in a beneficial way. So that's what we can say.
Wow, that's powerful. I appreciate you bringing that out, Doc. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. I've got a little tough question here, maybe for most people, but I know it's not going to be tough for you. Dr. Odom, we do hear from some of the inexperienced individuals about copycat products. And the reason I say inexperienced individuals, because we're going to cut through the chase right now, because I know exactly where you're going to go with this question. And I know we discuss that over and over, you and I. And sometimes we laugh when we hear it because really there is no competition. Would you mind sharing why you feel that way with Juice Plus?
Yes, sir. I'm happy to do that. In fact, I'm thrilled to give my opinion. And it's because I believe in research and I believe in science. And you don't know this, but when I was a medical student, I wrote 2 papers, one on pregnancy and colon cancer and diagnosed during pregnancy. The other one was on a rare type of pregnancy-related cancer, choriocarcinoma. And then when I was a resident, I wrote another paper. And then so I'm very comfortable reading research and being able to read through the fluff and understanding it. And so that's what sets us apart. There are a lot of things that set us apart, but the number one thing is the research. For me, it's 26 plus years experience of consuming Juice Plus myself. And when I was practicing, I had over 3,000 of my patients that saw enough value and trusted me enough that they became customers. A lot of them are still customers. Most of them are, in fact.
Now, as a medical doctor, okay, we hear, being on my fast forward a little bit, we hear a lot about all these products with testimonials, being you brought up studies. Now, some are really over the top as far as testimonials. How would you suggest a person differentiate between these testimonials and the science?
Well, there's a huge difference in media or advertising, and I think testimonials is just advertising and real science. So I would stick with the science every time. People do use testimonials, and I hate it when they talk about somebody else's, what happened to them. So if it's you and yourself, your history, your change or your improvement, your benefit, you can talk about that, and people can either listen or they can say, oh yeah, okay. But testimonials really aren't science. That's just that's your opinion, and everybody has one, and so it's okay. But I wouldn't bank on that. That wouldn't be why I would follow somebody or why I would even try something.
Now, we had a conversation before we did this a few days ago about NSF certification. For those of you listening in that are maybe partners, Partner Plus, QSCs, maybe some newbies that have started, maybe a sales coordinator, and you really don't understand the significance of NSF certification. How important is that, Dr. Odom? What is it? And why don't other products have the same certification? I did a little research, by the way. I went to the NSF site and I found out there's 55,000 supplements in America. Less than 1% are NSF certified. What is it and why is that?
It's a third-party validation of your product and what you say is in it and what you say is not in it. So it just validates the purity of what you're marketing. And it's not an easy thing to achieve, to have NSF certification, but it surely is valuable when you go through the process to to acquire it. And I love the fact that we have NSF for sport. So I know you've been involved in combat sports your whole life and promoting that. And we love the fact that what we have in these powders, I'm saying what we have, what our company has, is absolutely safe for elite athletes, including those that have their urine or their blood checked on a periodic random basis. So Olympic athletes, college athletes that are really worried about putting some foreign substance or something that would give them an edge or perceived edge on the athletic field. Our Juice Plus that's NSF certified for sport is absolutely safe for any athlete to consume and not worry about having their urine marked for having an advantage.
Well, in the combat sports arena, 6 out of 7 athletes that test positive for an illegal substance in their system comes from supplementation. And they get suspended and many fined, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's really important. The NSF certification is important. But my next question would be, Doc, most athletes are in tremendous physical condition. So how important is that for someone that's just maybe a part-time athlete, works out 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week? How important is this NSF certification for them, and also the credibility of our product because of the science behind it? They can't be as healthy as the athlete, I would think, right?
Right. Yes, sir. Well, I can't say that as a fact, but I wouldn't think that would mesh up. What it took me a while to appreciate. There's a huge difference in fitness and in health. And fitness means that that you're able to compete and then have recovery and then compete again. And you can measure different areas of fitness, VO max. There are so many different parameters that can be evaluated. But for somebody in a sport arena, the idea is you want as much purity as you can get. And if you just look at Juice Plus as being food with the sugar, the water, the calories pretty much eliminated or certainly reduced. And it's a collection of fiber and phytonutrients, nothing more, nothing less, but it's the consistency of consuming this that literally makes your physiology function better. And that's including in the athletic arena as well.
So in saying that, the layperson out there, this product is really very important for the layperson that's out there when they're looking for that perfect product. Am I safe to say that?
Well, in my opinion, to quote you, if it's too good to be true or along those lines, then it probably is. But in this case, I really think Juice Plus is too good to be true, only because it is true. It's been tested, it's time tested. And you asked me about research, and having done some research and done some with Juice Plus, but also having a 26-year experience with it, I can absolutely say that if you had 2 crowds, one consuming Juice Plus and one not, and compared their health picture overall, those consuming Juice Plus are going to have much better overall health. There are different parameters. Our company's done a lot of research, as we've just said, but one of the areas that we don't talk about or haven't talked about nearly as much for the non-athlete or the weekend warrior or layperson is what Juice Plus does for us without you even realizing it, and what it does in your gut health, what it does for your immune system, what it does to reduce inflammation across the board, every day, foods that you eat either contribute to inflammation or they reduce it. And everything that we have reduces inflammation. That's pretty much a blanket statement that we can all at least accept.
Now, when we first met, of course, we were primarily out talking about the fruit and the vegetable peel, and then we ended up getting the berries, and then now we have the omegas. If you don't mind, would you mind sharing a little bit about your thoughts about the omegas?
Sure. Well, I think everything that we have is spot on, quite frankly. When I joined, the company was trying to decide whether to add berries to the fruit blend or to have their own separate blend. So I was a little bit familiar with the polyphenols and the antioxidant potential for the berries, and I was encouraging the company to have their own blend, and they ended up doing that. And I know that we've been several of us had been considering asking the company to try to develop an omega product. And I know Bill Sears was at the forefront of that, Dr. William Sears in California, pediatrician. And I was thrilled when our company made that happen. So the omega blend are literally healthy fats in the right balance. And I know you've heard of essential fats and omega-6s and omega-3s, both essential fats, and essential doesn't mean you have to have them for quality health or optimal health. Essential means that our body doesn't make them. So we have to get them from an exogenous source, and that's our diet typically. But our company found a way to develop this omega blend that includes omegas 5, 6, 7, and 9, as well as omega-3s. And there was an outcry for the longest time about omega-3s, and they're so beneficial. And when you're comparing omega-6 to omega-3, it should be in a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio. But currently, back when we were looking at this in the United States, it was the ratio in most people was somewhere around 40 to 50 to 1. So rather than saying stop eating all those unhealthy omega-6s found in processed food and in too much animal source, there was this group of, or this area of thought to let's just add more omega-3s, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's amazing to me that our government and our leaders don't really focus on the elephant in the room, and that is how we can prevent or we can avoid these diseases that are killing us.
Wow. Wow. Doc, how about this? Out of all the 40 plus studies that we have, okay, this could be a tough one for you because it'd be hard for you to probably do this one, maybe not. Is there one that really stands out for you?
There's one, it's my favorite. Of course, I like all of them. And it's kind of like when I was in high school, I considered myself an athlete. My dad was a high school football coach. So I played all sports, and people would ask me, what's your favorite sport? And I would say it's the one I'm playing right now. So out of all the studies, from time to time, this one is or that one is. And for a while, my favorite study was the one that was found in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, where a high-fat meal was given to a group of subjects, and then they were given Juice Plus every day for 28 days, and then they measured the vasoconstriction, or the vascular constriction in the brachial artery. And within 28 days, the amount of constriction was reduced by 2/3, or right at 60-something%. That was just the fruit and the vegetable. And when they added the berry blend, it was almost 100%. It was over 98% reduction in that constriction. And constriction that occur in the coronary arteries or the carotid arteries are what leads to heart attacks and strokes. So it's not just the plaque buildup, and it's not just the arrhythmia of the heart, but it's also the constriction that occurs after that high-fat meal. So that was my favorite for a long time. And then, but the study that I really like to quote the most today, and that really appeals to me, is the study that was done in 2017 at the University of Newcastle in Australia. And it was the relationship between what we eat and the way that our genes are affected. So there's a whole brand new area of science called nutrigenomics that looks at the relationship between food that's consumed and genes that are activated or turned on, upregulated, downregulated. It's called gene expression. And there's a whole science of that, and it's called epigenetics. But food absolutely can affect our genes. We can't change our genes, but we can turn them on and turn them off. And that's what this study looked at: inflammatory genes. And as a result of Juice Plus, there were over 1,100 genes, beneficial genes, protective genes that were turned on, and almost 500 genes that were turned off. So the food that we choose to eat every single day definitely affects not only our health right now, but our future health, our genes, and the genes that we pass on to our children.
Wow. Wow. Doc, that is phenomenal information. We cannot thank you enough for spending your time with us tonight. I've got one final question before we shut this down. Just any final comments for the audience that you would like to address?
Are you addressing me or the audience? Is that for me?
I'm addressing you. Yes, sir.
Sure. Yes, sir. Well, I would like to tell us that we need to wake up, all of us, not just all of us that are on this call tonight, but this country. We just had a 3-year pandemic that will very likely have another one. And if you stop just for a minute and think, who were the people that were the sickest? Who were the people that actually ended up in the ICU or actually died in the hospital? They were the people that had comorbidities. They were people that had diabetes. They were obese. Lots of them were taking lots of medication. So the idea is that Juice Plus is not a medicine. It doesn't treat things. It affects our physiology. But we need to wake up now and get healthy. We need to focus on optimal health, and it's not complicated. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand what you can do to improve your health. There's so many of us in this country that if we just eliminated smoking, or if we reduce the amount of sugar, if we just could focus on one simple change, and the one simple change that I love to encourage people to make is to eat more plant food, eat more fiber, eat more of a variety of food. We're back to gut health. We have bacteria all in and on us. Most of them are in our colon, and that's called your enteric microbiome. And if we focus on feeding our beneficial bacteria, we can reduce inflammation, and we can reduce the likelihood of dying from any cause. And it's not about early detection. It's about reducing the likelihood of developing something. The word prevention to me means that you'll never develop something, but if we can just reduce the risk, and our 45 plus or minus studies, I'm not sure how many are published and where we are, and Dr. Roberto wasn't real sure about that either last week. But I know that we have lots of studies, almost 50 is what I tell people. I don't know the exact number, but all of our studies show that Juice Plus affects the physiology of the human body in a beneficial way. So you could actually do the same thing if you would just make the change in your diet and eat more vegetables, eat more salads, eat more plants, eat more fiber. So that's my message. It's very simple, but we hold literally the solution in our hands every time we talk to somebody. There's so many ways that we can affect this enteric microbiome, and it's the beneficial bacteria that literally breaks down the fiber. Humans don't really have the enzymes or the equipment, the ability to break down plant food, the cellulose, but the bacteria do all that for us. The bacteria also make lots of vitamins. They make neurotransmitters. They make a lot of the components like short chain fatty acids that are so beneficial for healing our gut wall for people that have IBS or Crohn's disease. So all of this is just plant food. But that's what we have. That's everything that we have is plant-based. There's no animal anything. We even have a way to grow your own food. And I love all of the different aspects of what the Juice Plus company represents.
Wow. Doc, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day. And you're just a strong advocate, and have been for many years. I've watched you grow up with this company and become a huge asset for us, not only here in the South, Southern United States, but throughout all of North America and other parts of the world. I cannot thank you enough for spending your time. And quite honestly, I'm going to ask you, maybe we can go to episode 2 one day in a few weeks and talk a little bit more about the benefits of being a Juice Plus user. And I just can't thank you enough. So what I'm going to do, Doc, I'm going to take this off the recording. I got a quick announcement I want to make to everyone. I'd like you to stay on.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you for the privilege of addressing your group tonight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Doc.